Jerry, welcome. This is your first time back in 10 years?
10 years.
10 years? So we can't wait another 10 years for you to do this again. So, and he's leaving tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
So it's not as if we can even invite him back. So, Jerry, how'd you get started?
I got started, well, first of all, this was my first hero in baseball.
Oh, let's back up. Let's get this here.
Jack was he was the bat boy for this team, and I thought that was the best job in the world. I was maybe 12, 13 years old, something like that. I thought, man, I want to be the bat boy of that ball club. But I never made it.
You didn't know all I had to do.
I had no idea. All I knew is that
And
you
the
were at
crap
a
I
baseball.
had to take from guys like Pollock, who you could not defend himself.
All I knew was that you were at a baseball game every night, and I could think of nothing finer in the world than to be able to be at a baseball game every night and to see it being played. And so he was my first hero. And then I got involved in radio while I was still in high school, and graduated in 1945, so I was just here for my 50th high school reunion, Saturday night, here in the hotel. And while I was in high school, World War II broke out. I used to go to as many of the Falcon games as I could possibly get to, but it was a little tough to come up with a quarter in those days to do that, but we went as often as it was possible to do, and I think that's what a student's ticket was a quarter at that time. But I just have always loved the game. It always followed it. And then I went in service, and when I came back from service, I went to work at the radio station. First at WJTN for where I had been while I was in high school. I had worked there. And I filled in for a short time during the vacation era. And WJOC had just opened a few months before that. And I was told by somebody here in town, I don't even remember who now, that there was going to be an opening at WJOC. So I went up to see them, and they hired me. The sports job was the one that opened up, so I became their sports director, and then got involved with going to the baseball games, and at least got to see them every night, Jack. I was up in the press box, but I was not on the field, but I was there every night when they were there. And I stayed doing that until the Tigers decided that they were going to sell the ball club or close it out. They were no longer going to own it, and they wanted to sell the ball club. And so Bob Lundell from the bowling alley and I put together what we had and made an offer which surprised us when they said, we'll take it. And we were in baseball.
This was what year?
I'm trying to remember if it was I think it was 1955. And we operated the ball club in 1950. No, I went to work for the Tigers in 55, and then in 56 we bought the ball club. Mm-hmm. And kept it open as long as we could, and it just got to be, we had nothing left. There was just no place else for us to go. So we saw it through to the end of the year, and then that was all we could do. We just couldn't continue anymore. But I still, I never lost my love of the game. We had a lot of competition at that time from television just coming in, and even my father, who was always my greatest fan, seemed to be watching the test pattern rather than listening to me on the radio. And I mean, it was, it was just one of those things. And Big League Baseball was expanding their radio broadcasts and their TV broadcasts, and people were suddenly getting a much better brand of baseball. Didn't have the enthusiasm and the spirit, but it was a better brand of playing, I guess, or at least people felt that way. And they all became wrapped up in that instead of us. Now, I'll never forget being in a telephone battles with Hank Greenberg when he was the general manager of the Cleveland Ball Club. They were violating the rules certainly in spirit, if not in fact. They would bring their mobile ticket booth and park it in our driveway at the stadium and sell tickets to the Cleveland ball games to the fans that were coming to see us. And people could come and see 5 or 6 games for us for what they were paying for one ticket to go to Cleveland to see. But we were suddenly all hero worshipers, I guess, and we wanted to see the big time instead of the small time, and it was just our misfortune to be involved at that period of time. And the saddest day of my life, I think, was when I had to say, that's it. We've got nothing left to go any further with. There's just nothing left. And what do we do?
Did you sell the franchise? Was there anything left to sell with
There was
Nick?
nothing left to sell. I gave whatever there was to the city of Jamestown we owed them money for the stadium rental and things, and they were very kind, but I gave them all of the concessions equipment, turned over the bus to the city to do whatever they could to try to keep it going again, but they didn't for a while, and then I guess eventually.
57, I think, was the last year, and then that was
Yeah,
it.
57, I guess they did, and then.
Folded in the middle of the season.
And then went.
Sorry. Sorry.
And it was a sad time. I stayed in touch with a lot of the ball players that went on that were here, and with Cedric. Cedric wound up being the business manager for the Los Angeles Angels when they first were organized, and so I spent a lot of time with Cedric and with Barbara, his wife, who had worked with me at the radio station prior to my taking over the ball club, and also with a lot of the other people you talk about, or Kinky talked about Jerry Klein. I had occasion to meet with Lefty Gomez, who had been in town several times as a representative for the Sporting Goods Company, and I belonged to an organization out there in California, and we got Lefty to be a speaker at the organization, and so it was great to renew my friendship with him again. And the first thing he asked me is, "What about Jerry Klein?" Is he still there? Because Lefty remembered Jerry very, very well. Lefty had been with the Wilson Sporting Goods Company and made a lot of calls here and sold all their equipment to the Falcons and to the various stores in this area, and he was a great guy. Proud of another thing, 2 of the members of my last ball club are now managing in the big leagues. Buck Rogers is not managing right now because he has lost his job with the Angels, but he's scouting in the big leagues, but he has been a big league manager. And Phil Regan, of course, is now at Baltimore, and they were teammates on that the last ball club that we had here with Detroit, and so it's been great. I had when Greg Malevy was coaching the Dodgers, I spent quite a lot of time with him, and Gene Love, who used to his father had the humidor, and Gene took it over, I guess, after his father died very suddenly, and Gene was my concessions manager for a while, and he moved out there, and we were very close, and met each other a lot. Now he has moved away and gone down to Arizona to be with his oldest son, or he may even have passed away since then. I'm not sure.
Tell me about radio.
About radio?
Covering New York, Pennsylvania. What was it, Pony League?
It was Pony League.
Pony
in
League
those
then.
days, yes.
And
And that was a
you had to be one of the first to. I mean, did they cover it in the 40s? Did they cover radio?
No, once in a while a game was broadcast. Al Spokes used to do a game once in a while on WJTN, when particularly playoff games.
Mhm.
The playoff games with Olean in 1941, which you'll remember very well. And then we started broadcasting them at WJOC in 1949 with Cedric Tallis as the general manager of the ball club, and he wanted to try to rebuild the spirit again, and he wanted all the games broadcast, so we did, home and away, and that was fun. I had always enjoyed, as a little kid, as I mentioned, playing these baseball games. I used to pretend I was broadcasting these games as I would play them, and so when I sat down to do my first away game, reconstructed from telegraph wires, it was like I had done this all my life, because I had always imagined that this game was going on in front of me while I was trying to do it. And that was fun. And every once in a while, things would go wrong. The machine would stop, there would be a break in the line, and well, they were playing in Hornell, and Hornell didn't realize how many rainstorms they had, because I had to say it was raining and hold that game up and to go along. But that's what we had to do to make it up. And I was explaining at lunch, the games when they came in on the telegram wire, it would say B1 OS, ball one outside. And then the next thing would be S1C, strike one called. And each pitch came in that way. And so you had to create the game. You couldn't just say ball one swinging, or ball one outside, or strike one swinging. So you had to create the game about the pitcher looking in and getting a sign and doing all of these things. And try to make the game alive, so that the people who were listening to it could feel that they were at the ball game, or at least know what was going on, and try to get a sense of the excitement. And sometimes you built excitement all the way, you know. There were several that just said F7, fly out to left field. And some left fielders will never know what great catches they made, and coming in and doing that kind of thing. But that's the way you had to do it in those days. And then Western Union went on strike. And we had sold all of these baseball broadcasts to advertisers. Simon Brody had 2 nights, and there were people around, other sponsors that we had, who had commitments to them, so we had to keep the games going, because it was a great source of income for the radio station. So the only thing we could do when Western Union was on strike was to go out to these towns and do the games live from wherever they were. So I would, at the end of my day, or in the middle of my working day usually, I would have to get in my car and drive to Hornell, or drive to Hamilton, or drive wherever I was going, do a baseball broadcast, finish that broadcast, and drive back home again, and open the radio station the next morning, and then be ready to take off again to go back to Hoyelsville or back to wherever and do the next game. And so sometimes those things we get to Hamilton, and we get down to set up our equipment and everything, and noticed that we don't have enough power. There's that, and they were on, and I don't remember the cycle ratings now, but they were on 50 cycle, and our equipment was 60 cycle, or something was different. And so we could not get our equipment to function. It wouldn't provide enough power to get the thing back. So we didn't know what to do. We tried all kinds of things, and finally called one of the other stations in Hamilton, and they had a mobile transmitter, or a small transmitter that they used for things that they thought might work. So they hurried down to the ballpark with their equipment for us, and they set that up, and we completed our broadcast with borrowed equipment from Hamilton, and did that kind of thing. But you had to kind of, you had to gerrymander things and do them as best you can in those days, and so it wasn't just the ball game that had to go along and go well, but you also had some of the elements to go with. And it was terrible to get down to Bradford and sit there and be ready all to do a ball game, and then have one of those storms come in, and boom, the game is washed out. Now we've been to Bradford for no reason. You've got to get back to town again for the next morning, and back to Bradford, And maybe it was going to be a doubleheader the next day because they had to do this. But those were all things that we hoped that the radio audience never were aware of happening, that they would just sit and listen and hope that they enjoyed the game. And they seemed to do it because they patronized our sponsors and they kept us going for a number of years while we were doing it. So I guess whatever we did worked out, worked okay. And that was fun. Broadcasting the games was a great thrill. I was never able to play the game. I was never good enough for that, which was a great disappointment to me. But broadcasting the games was next best. And I have never, ever lost my love for the game of baseball. That they can talk about football and hockey and soccer and all of the other things, and I do go to a few hockey games and once in a while to a football game. But I make every effort to get to as many baseball games as I can, and I don't care if it's Little League or high school or whatever. And now I'm happily following some of my grandsons, and I'll mention the name Justin Moore because you will hear more about Justin Moore someday. He is being scouted now in high school, and every college in California and Arizona is inundating my daughter and her husband with bids for him, and you'll hear more about Justin Moore, but shortstop. But I have watched him with great pride develop into a real baseball player, and that's I don't know what more you can ask.
As you broadcast many games, you saw many games, there must be a couple of highlight games.
Well, yeah, it's hard to sit back and pick out one game because I loved every game, and I didn't care if it was 10-0 or 1-0. I mean, I loved every game of baseball. But I did a no-hit, no-run game, and trying to remember the Falcon pitcher that pitched it. And the name Bill Furlong is in my head, but I can't remember for sure if it was Bill Furlong who did that game. But I think the excitement of that game, and fortunately that was one that was done live, and so it's happening, and you don't know the outcome ahead of time. You can't look ahead at the sheets that are piling up on you. So I think that was probably an exciting game. And Kenke mentioned Sid Ford. Sid Ford did one of the funny things funniest things I've ever seen happen in baseball, I think. Sid was from Tennessee, Old Hickory, Tennessee, and he came up to bat and got a base hit and went to first base. And Sid was not the fastest man on 2 feet by any stretch of the imagination because he was big and husky guy. And somebody hit a high fly ball the next batter. I can't remember who it is. And Sid decided that he should score if he could. Now he's on first base. So he took off with his head down. And the ball is a high fly ball in the outfield. And the outfielder is circling around and getting under it. And the coach at third base is hollering, "Go back, go back, go back." And the coach at first base is hollering, "Come back." And the manager's up on the dugout, saying, "Get back, go back." And finally Sid pulls around second base and puts his head up and sees everybody hollering, "Go back, go back." And he turns around and goes back and touches second base and gets back to first and just makes it in time. The ball is caught and is thrown over to first base. And Sid is laughing so hard, he stepped off the base and the guy tagged him. He made it safe and then fell off the base. And I'll never forget that. And I'll tell you, Tony Lupien was managing, I think, and I thought Tony was going to come unglued with that. But Sid but he did make it back to first. But he didn't make it for very long.
Favorite player?
Frank Bowling. Frank was I was at spring training when Frank came to camp from the Buffalo camp and was sent over to us. And when Frank walked out on the baseball field, the big league ball player walked out there, and you could tell that from day one in camp. A gentleman, just an absolute example of the right kind of a guy. And Frank was destined to play big league baseball, and I think everybody that ever saw him play a game knew that from his Pony League days anyway, and maybe they knew it when he was a youngster growing up. But Frank was class. He did his job. No glamour necessarily, but he just was steady and did his job so well.
Did he play after Schoolboy Rowe and Tommy Bridges?
Yes. Frank was in he played here in 51 and 52, 51. 52, I think he went to Buffalo. But he played here in the 1951 season. And he was just a great ball player from day one. And I think he would have to be one of the favorites that I was involved with growing up was, I'm sure, a friend of yours, Jack, Frank Heller.
Oh, yeah.
And that was Frank was a hero too.
Frank Larry.
Didn't know him well. I just saw him pitch here in 1950, I guess, when he was here, and really didn't get to know him very well in 1950. Don't think he spent the full season here. I think he was only here a part of the time. But he did his job and did it well for a few years. And
Bob Shaw.
Bob was St. Lawrence University, where I was from, and
I understand he was a nut.
huh?
I understand he was a nut.
Yeah, but most of us were from St. Lawrence. But he was a good guy. He was a good guy, and I saw Bob in the 1959 World Series in L.A. when the White Sox came out to play. So I had a little time to spend with Bob when he was with the Chicago team there, and we had dinner together. Nice guy, but.
Jerry was telling me he has in his archives the actual tapes, some of the tapes he used on the radio. Jamestown and Hornell, I think you mentioned.
Yeah.
Or Wilson.
Yeah. The telegram wires
Yeah.
and stuff that came over. And so I still have those, and I will see that you have those. If you want those, you can have them, because they, you don't, those things don't exist anymore.
No,
They don't
that's-
do baseball like that
Where do you keep all
anymore.
this stuff?
Huh?
Where do you keep all this stuff?
Well, at some point, we got a ton of stuff that has been being gathered, and hopefully the Fenton Historical Society. Russ and I, Russ got more than I've got, we've really mused over where these should go. Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame, in all candor, we don't know where it's going to end up in the long haul, and that would be the logical place, but
Don't have the room up there nowadays.
they don't have the room, and I'm not sure that's the.
Well, it's great that you still do this, guys. Keep it together, because we don't ever want to be living in the past any place, but we don't ever want to forget that past either. Never want to forget.
Well, you don't know where you are today if you don't know where you've been.
No, that's right, and it means so much. And I saw this, and I just happened to pick up the paper last night. I'm staying out in Panama, where my son lives, and I just saw this thing, and I told Bill, I said, I don't know, somehow, I just left here. I've been staying in this hotel for 4 days, and went out there, and I said, I don't know how, I may have to walk, but I'm going back to Jamestown tomorrow. And he said, no, you don't have to walk. So
So you get a free day, they're not charging you for the day.
So I just had to come, and just to urge you to keep together and keep doing this, because it's so important to know what roots are, and you know, to keep a history and to keep it going. And to see people like you doing it that weren't even around when we started all of this stuff, and it's a tribute to you, and certainly gratifying to people like me who spent a lot of my life doing this and trying to keep baseball going in this town. Saying goodbye to it was terrible. Saying goodbye to the game of baseball was terrible. And I don't want to go through that again.
Yeah. Pat Gallagher, was he through your, did you?
Pat?
Yeah, down Ganella Carlson?
No.
Is that ringing a bell?
No.
Okay.
Jack does.
Jack talked about Pat.
Yeah. No, I remember the name probably, but I'm just, I know, I can't think of any real connection.
He was a ticker tape expert. He thought, but he really wasn't. But he used to post the scores.
Oh, yeah?
Down in Ganella now.
Oh, down at Ganella Carlson.
Yeah,
Oh,
they used to
Yeah.
just pick on him on first.
Yeah.
But some of it was, he deserved, you know.
Yeah, now I remember who you're talking about.
Well, tell Jerry my story my dad told about Gallagher. Pat
Oh, Pat's up there keeping score on the board, he, you know, gets it off the tape. So, I don't know what team it was, but they scored 11 runs in 1 inning. So one of these wise guys says, Pat, how can that be? How many ball players on a team? Pat says 9. He says, how the hell can they score 11 runs? So he erased it and put it 9. But they were always doing things. Of course, he's a
I
little.
don't remember what year it was, but I remember listening to a game, Falcons game on the radio. This is when Tom Sass was playing.
Tom Sass, 1941.
No.
41 or 42? Had to be 42 then.
But I listened to the game, and the announcer was about Tom Sass. I think he was taking it off the wire. There goes a fly ball in the deep right field, and there goes Tom Sass up against the wall. My dad cracked up because I didn't tumble. I was a young. My dad had to explain it to me.
You mentioned Detroit playing, Kinky mentioned Detroit playing an exhibition game here. He's forgotten about 1942 when the Boston Braves came into town and played at Municipal Stadium. And that was the year that Paul Wainer had just hit his 3,000th hit. And so he was here about a month after he had hit his 3,000th hit. But the Braves played here in 1942. So,
I think Freddie Hutchinson was with Detroit when they came in here and played.
I think Freddie, yeah, he was still with them, I'm sure. Yeah. Great ball player and a great, turned out to be a very, very good manager.
Died too young.
Died much too young, yes. But in the last couple of years of his life, I saw him at a meeting, at a big league, major league conventions in San Diego. And that was sad. He was gone. Ran into another friend down there in San Diego, Hal Schumacher, who you may remember from the Giants in the early 30s. I mean, you won't remember, but you may remember the name. But Hal was with the Adirondack Bat Company, and he was also a St. Lawrence alumni. So we had a time together there, and with Kenny Walters, who played in the outfield in the late 40s and 1950. I think he was on the 1950 club. And Kenny was then with Cincinnati when I saw him. We were together in San Francisco and again down in San Diego. Because whenever I went to any of those places that the ball club was around, I went to see their games.
Terrific.
So I've tried to stay in touch as much as possible.
This has been a real bonus. This is terrific, Jerry. I now have something, at least for archival purposes, that I've never had: radio. You know, I have no clue. You know, even think about radio. And covering the games, the whole process of the game. You've read about, the ticker tape, and I always thought that was just a major league thing. Here it is, Jamestown.
Yeah.
This is...
No, and a name that should be remembered for that, and whatever you do and write down the name of Claire Sherman from Western Union, because Claire Sherman was the man who was at every single game. He had nothing to do but take that tape off, fix it up so each batter was lined up on the paper for me, and bring it down, and he did it without fail and without a mistake or without anything. He just came in and did his job, and Claire Sherman deserves a tremendous amount of credit for what he did, and so just remember that name. His son, Claire Jr., died much too young, and worked at WJTN as an announcer. Little fellow with a deep voice, and died very suddenly at a wedding.
Now what about
March
Al
6th.
Spokes?
Al Spokes went from here to Springfield, Vermont, to have his own station. And I visited with Al up in Springfield at his home while I was in college. And it's only a hop, skip, and a jump across from St. Lawrence over to Springfield. And so I went over to spend some time with
He was the announcer back in there.
Al. He was the announcer at WJTN until, I guess 1946. I think he probably left in 46 or 47 and came. But he always opened his sports show on WJTN with a bugle call. And Al Spokes speaking with reports on sports. Yeah, I'll never forget Al. Nice guy.
Before I let you go, since you're in the radio business, who were the guys that covered the newspaper beat? Originally, was Stuart McGuire?
No, well, originally, but
Can I just ask a question to anybody who might know this? Stuart McGuire, he had he was a Jamestown Journal?
Yeah.
Jamestown Evening.
Journal. What happened to him?
Well, he was old when he was there.
yeah,
So he just even
Might have,
my daughter-in-law is going to be waiting for me, but Frank Hyde was
Frank
the
Hyde?
sports editor at the Post-Journal, and Wade Forsythe was his assistant until the Sun opened, and then Wade went up as sports director at the Sun. Oh, Frank and I had some wonderful times. I'd love to be, but I don't have the time. I'll write to you about that. Frank and I went to spring training. We drove to Florida and went to spring training with the Falcons one year, and the ride down there was wonderful. We had an experience, a couple of them there, that was just absolutely terrific. And I'll tell that's for another time.
All right, terrific. Well, thank you, Jerry. It's been a bonus.
Yes,
Terrific.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, guys.